pieces were actually the temple. So if I take out, then I'm worried that I'm going to disassemble the whole thing. So my student told me we needed to take a leap of faith, take up the track block. And next. So we did take up, okay, we take out piece by piece, and we were we thought that maybe the broken track blocks were actually rubber covering the temple, but we were not sure, but we took the risk by taking up, and then after we take up next, we discovered this, okay? So we discovered an intact temple, so it was a temple covered by broken rubble. So the temple was higher and it collapsed to itself. Next. So just now it was from the north, from the south, and this one is from the north. You can see the rubble actually collapsed to itself. Okay? Next. So this is the drone image. Okay, so you can see the rubble here. So we haven't moved this one yet in 2003. So it is excavated pretty much half of the temple. Okay, next. To the south, we discovered one seated Buddha. You know, I think this meditative Buddha in the meditative pose. And next to the statue, we discovered an in situ vertebrated calf with an image of the spot. This is the kind of finding that we want. You know, we want to make sure that the finding, the context is clear. We excavate very carefully and we record everything, and surrounding the Buddha, we discovered pottery and inscription, so we can know what kind of rituals they had during that time. So even the vertebra is placed next to it, you know, it was unmoved. You know, nobody moved that thing. So you know, it was as it was left after it was worshipped for 1,000 years or so, and we discovered it. Okay, so this is the most important thing, context. Next, to the west, we discovered another seated Buddha, and this one can be dated. I think the dating is the same, and not so well preserved. And it is made of stucco. It is a mixture of lime and sand. Okay, very fragile. Next. And then finish after the first phase, and we had some press conference, and then it's done. And I was under the impression that we are not going to find any more. Okay, it is the best that we can hope for already. 2 Buddha statues, 2 inscription, and a temple. Okay, and what is that? So that is in 2003, it was already a big discovery back then, because there were statues and inscription and body temple and temple all within the same context, all associated with one another and all excavated using the scientific method. And then in 2024 February, I just wanted to get some soil sample and to look at the soil layers. Okay, just that day. So I didn't expect to find any. So we did the excavation again next. So we focused on the northern part of the temple next. Okay, so when we excavated the northern part of the temple, we found another chamber. Okay, next. So this is the chamber, and you see that white thing. So that is actually the kneecap of the third statue. Okay, the kneecap of the third statue. But after 9 days, after 9 days, I had to stop the excavation. You know, because the Vietnamese are nobody. So what we did, we reburied the thing and protected the government of Malaysia, and Tin City gave us rescue. So Tin City gave us money to do the excavation. Next. So this is the site that we excavated. So we reburied it, and we only reported this to the government of Malaysia. So we told the government that we discovered the statue, maybe no head, but the body is still there. Okay, so the government is very happy, and then we conducted the excavation. Next. Okay, so this is the conclusion. Next. Phase 3, we got funding from TCT and we got funding from the government also. We wanted to determine whether or not the third statue is intact. So we focused our excavation at the northern part of the temple. Next. So we started excavating. Emma, I think that's actual. Yes. Next. So what we did before that, we excavated over here. So we opened to this part. Okay. Next. And then when we excavated, we found something in front of the statue. I mean, like an 8x4 fell to the front. Next. So it was a head, you know, and you can see the ears and the head, kind of, we call it the wing shaft. Next. So it was, this one is the best preserved Buddha statue ever to be discovered in Germany, the biggest also. You know, before my discovery, I didn't believe that the people of ancient Kedah were actually Hindu or Buddhist. Because why? Because the temples are so small, the statues, they are very small, they are very portable. So I was under the impression that all of the statues that we have in the Bujang was actually brought in by traders. So I said until I discover a big statue, I'm not going to believe. So I ended up discovering, so I changed my opinion. Okay, so the statue is well preserved. The material is 100% local material. They use lime coming from Gunung Pula and Gunung Triang. So they brought from the upper reaches of the Buddha River, they brought to the coastal area, they processed and turned them into stucco. The laterite block cave was quarried from the foothill of Bukit Churas. The inscription was made of black shell, can be found 1 kilometer from the side. Everything is locally sourced. Okay? So it shows that there were local, how do you say, that there were local people cooperating maybe with foreign artisans to build the temple. Okay, next. And then we restored it back to the statue and we found one of the best temple of the Buddha statue. The statue now is safe in my office. We are in the process of conserving and restoring it. It is going to take maybe 1 or 2 years to restore. Okay, and we also made lots of replicas. Life size, around my size. Yeah. Next. So this is the general scheme of the stupa. How does it look like? The differences, maybe they have had different cardinal points, they have one statue. Okay, next. And we believe that the stupa, you know, it was coated with white stucco because we saw some remains of the stucco on the wall. So it must have been coated with white color. So it must be white color, you know, and located on top of the hill. So when the sun shines, it must be very, it was shining, you know. Okay, next. Okay, and when we look at architecture, it shows some similarity with Rodziadi Ratnagiri of Eastern India. Some similarity. Okay, with the cardinal, with the cardinal Buddha, all in this meditative in your position. Okay, next. Very nice. Next. We also discovered inscriptions containing the mantra of Sakaramati Paripicham. And we discovered the same mantra in other sites in Bujang, Sungai Batu, Sungai Bujang, we discovered. Next. Okay, everyone, this one was discovered by your son actually. So he excavated the day. So when I excavated, so I said that your son really bring luck to the site, so you should come again. Okay, next. This is the Buddha. Next. Next. Okay, phase 4. Now we already know the excavation of the main structure, but to the south of the main structure, we discovered a mound, and I wasn't sure whether or not there were temples underneath the mound. So I wanted to try and excavate that. Next. So this is the structure located over here, the one that we excavated, and there is another mound over here. But it is a very low mound, so I'm not sure. So that's what we needed to excavate. Next. So this is the mound. Okay, and this Dr. Bella actually is the field director of my student, so he's the manager with me, and those are my students. Next. Before excavation, okay, the base structure, and maybe there is one more, maybe not. That's what we need to try. Next, after excavation, we discovered one more temple which is bigger than the main structure. So what is the function of this site? We don't know. We need to finish excavation. I just excavated like 20% of it. So we need to continue with excavation. Okay? Next. So it shows similarity with Rodziadi sites. You can see? So similar. Rodziadi. And you know that Rodziadi is part of the network of coastal polities under Sriwijaya. Yeah, they were interconnected. Yeah, so it is one of the most important proof that there is this maritime culture, and there is interconnectivity with Kedah Buddha. So not just with India, but with also other economic and cultural centers of Southeast Asia. Next. How similar they are? Of course, in Rodziadi the site is a lot bigger, but still the scheme is pretty much the same. Next. Okay, see. Very nice, huh? And then we also discovered lots of post holes. So they have stone foundation, but the superstructure could have been made by perishable materials. Wood, and we prove this by next. Okay, you can see the post holes. Next. we discovered another inscription in that site. Next, it contains another structure. And paleography of this inscription is a lot older as compared to the main site. So it appears that the site was built in different stages. Okay, this one is like can be dated from the 6th to the 7th century CE, and the inscription that I discovered in the main structure 8th to 9th century CE. So it was occupied for a long period of time, and maybe the temple were renovated or rebuilt by different groups of people. Okay, so that's normal for any coastal sites. Next. Now, aside from excavating Bukit Choras, of course, so far we have only excavated 35% of the whole site in Bukit Choras, and we discovered 3 inscriptions, 3 statues, 2 temples, lots of pottery, lots of iron objects, votive tablet, and it's just 35%. There could be more. Okay? But we stop over there in Bukit Choras and we look at the sites to answer other research questions. And we excavated the Sungai Batu archaeological site also. That happened, I think, in December last year. Okay, thanks. So in Sungai Batu, there were around 97 archaeological sites, and 54 have already been excavated. So there are still 43 unexcavated sites, and we wanted to potential one of that 43 sites. We want to explore the potential, and we did some survey and trial excavation. But the main purpose of this excavation is to get soil sample where I want to extract pollens and things, to understand the environment, and in the process we can be able to explore something. Next. So the site is located over here. Next. And before we excavate, we conducted some geophysical survey. Before we excavate, we need to be sure that something is buried down there. Otherwise I will spend money and discover nothing. That is very bad for my project. And you still be asking for paper, Q1, how am I going to publish anything with no artifacts. So we have to make sure that there is not something buried down there. And then after we detected something, we started the excavation. Next. Yeah. So Ash is one of the very important member, and this guy he thinks very fast, So if one hole he can finish like I think in 1 day, very fast. Okay, next. And we did discover after doing the geo survey, we discovered lots of iron objects. Next. Next. Okay, those are iron slabs. I know it looks like very boring, but those are important data for us. Okay, those are iron slabs and iron pieces, and there was an intense iron smelting activity out there. Okay, next. Okay, so far we have just excavated this much. Okay, we need to continue the excavation after money comes in. So we did project. Okay, next. One of the areas which has been re-studied is the upper reaches of the Buran River. Why upper reaches of the Buran River is important? In order for any port to develop, you need a rich hinterland. The hinterland provides the coastal area with material, wood, food, and everything. So you need a rich hinterland to support ports. That's why before the British came, Singapore was not a very important port because it doesn't have any rich hinterland. You look at any port, there must be a rich hinterland. For instance, in Sungai Muda, in Rodziadi we have Sungai Muda. In Melaka, the Melaka River can be connected into the Bahang, rich hinterland. In Palembang, Sungai Musi, and Sungai Musi and Sungai Jati can be connected into the hinterlands of Khaw. You need a rich hinterland for any port to develop. And the hinterland of Rodziadi is actually the upper Buran River. The problem with the upper Buran River is it is now being submerged under dam. However, just a few months ago, because of the dry season, the water level went down and we were able to walk at the bottom of the dam, and they reported some archaeological findings. Next. Next. So, you can see the blue outline, those are the location of the dam actually. And then when the water level went up, next, we discovered lots of archaeological sites. So this is supposed to be underwater. And after our survey, we discovered next iron smelting sites. Okay. However, this one is from the modern period, maybe 19th or 20th century, because they were discovered near to Kampung site. But still, the shape of the furnace is pretty much similar to those in Sungai Batu. It could suggest continuation of the iron technology, but more research is needed. Next. We also discovered stone tools. use photos from the prehistory period. Okay? At least it shows that from the prehistory period there were already people living there. And the population and the coastal area of the Rodziadi, it could have come from the interior, with the development of the economy. Next. So you see, those are choppers. Maybe it looks like the normal stones, you guys, but you can see the marks, you can see the cut marks of them. So there's a chopping tools. Next. So those are the stone tools discovered. So there must have been some hominid communities. This one can be dated maybe before 500 BC. But the most important thing is to prove the presence of ancient communities living in the upper reaches of the Buna River, which shows that prior to the emergence of Rodziadi, there were already prehistoric communities living in the area, which became the nucleus for the development of the Kedah port. Next. And lots of more. Okay, thanks. I wanted to conduct excavation, but now it is already flooded, so I have to wait next year. Okay? Thanks. Now, what can we say about Rodziadi? Number one, it is a diverse economy. Why? It is diverse because there were multiple settlements. Different settlements would have different economic functions. So the function of Rodziadi in terms of economy, there are three. Number one, it is the center for trade, obviously. Number two, it is the center for production of local goods. Okay, iron, wheat, pottery. And number three, center for collection of rainforest products. So it has a diverse economy. And we should view the coastal community, the indigenous community, as an active agent for the transmission of great ideas. So the process of acculturation, the process of indigenization, it is not a one-way process, but it is a negotiated process dictated by the environment and the economy. Different societies, different communities within the Rodziadi would have different level of acceptance towards the Indian culture. And it appears that based on the distribution of the archaeological sites, we can see that the Hindu or Buddhist religion, they were only concentrated in the coastal areas. But when we go to the interior, we found economic site, but not a single piece of Hindu-Buddhist temple. When we go to other parts of Kedah, Bali, Kuala Nerang, Kota Star, not a single Hindu-Buddhist. So it appears that the Hindu or Buddhist communities, they only concentrated within the economic center until the 20th century. After that, it just disappeared. So it leads us to view Asia Kedah not really as a Hindu-Buddhist, but it is a constellation of coastal communities, different communities living in the Rodziadi. Some are Buddhists, some are Hindus, some are traders, some are locals. So there are different segments of communities living in that area. So it is a place for different cultures being practiced at the same time, but the local rulers were the one who controls everything. And the purpose people go to Kedah is for money. Settle for it. Next. So what we can see in terms of the political system, I use the term polycentric governance, because authority was distributed over dispersed settlements. We have Sungai Bujang, we have Sungai Batu, we have Sungai Muda, and outside Sungai Bujang, we have other settlements, Bukit Coras, Kuala Sengsing, Beruas, Perlis, different outputs. And authority was dispersed, was distributed over these big settlements. And they existed as confederation when it comes to trading activities. Maybe they send all their product to the main port, but when it comes to administration, everyone might do business now. And then the most important thing is how these communities related with big powers during that time. We have India, we have China, and we have Middle East, the communities of traders in the Middle East. So the relation between the local rulers with these big powers, they are very fluid, very pragmatic and relational, and situational also. So we know that in the 11th century CE, we discovered thousands of Sung period ceramics in Pengkalan Bojang, but not a single record of the Chinese government about Kedah. In India, we discovered Indian inscription talking non-stop about Kedah, but not a single piece of Chola artifact of Kedah. So it appears that they already have this compartmentalized cooperation between different powers. Maybe they have security arrangements with the Cholas, but economic relation with China without any diplomatic relation. So it is a multifaceted relation happening during that time. And Kedah itself, it was not a centralized kingdom. It consisted of different polities, and maybe the big powers were confused, don't know who to deal with. Yeah, so that is the thing which keeps Kedah quite independent for quite some time. Because the politics was very complicated. Maybe until today. Next. So the relation with the outside world was guided by pragmatism. We can see the rise and fall of big powers during that time, from the 2nd century CE to the 14th century CE. Maybe from the 2nd to the 6th, we have the Tutas. In the 7th, from the 7th to 10th, we have the Palas. And then we have the Cholas. And after the Cholas, Islam. Yeah? So different powers come and go, but Kedah remains. And also China, we have the Tang dynasty, we have the Sung dynasty, and then we have the Yuan dynasty. Dynasty rise and fall, and Kedah remains. Why? Because it is the place where they preserve their strategic autonomy. It is a place where everyone can make money. It is a politically stable area. So, I say that the rulers of Kedah were able to maneuver through the complexity of geopolitics during that time because they were already savvy about this maritime interaction. Thanks. And selective cultural adoption, people like to ask me this kind of question: were the people in Kedah Hindu? Were the people in Kedah Buddhist? It's very hard to answer because that would depend on which community you are referring to and at what time. As I said earlier, different communities would have different level of acceptance to foreign stimuli at different times. For instance, when you want to talk about Engkalang Puja, yes, maybe, because we have lots of Buddhist and Hindu sites, so there were communities of traders and there were local indigenous people participating in the rituals. Kampung Sungai Mas, yes, we have lots of Buddhist and Hindu sites, so maybe the locals participated also. In Sungai Batu, not so much, just one Buddhist temple. But when we go to the upper reaches of the Murai, we don't find anything. We just want the iron smelting site, or maybe a few pieces of prehistoric sites. Outside of that, we don't find anything. Maybe one Bukit Joras in the middle of nowhere. So I would say that the process of Indianization is uneven, and it is dispersed over constellation of settlements. And Kedah should be seen as an area where different cultures will be practiced at one time. Anyway, it's a coastal area. That is what we can expect. Okay? Next. So what is the relevance to our historical narrative right now? The emergence of ancient Kedah and the ability for ancient Kedah to endure over a long period of time was due to their ability to manage not territory, not power, but to manage connectivity. It is the management of connectivity that allowed Kedah to become a strong power, economic power. Okay? How Kedah managed to have iron smelting site, bead making site, and reverse product and trade at the same time, because they know how to manage connectivity, they know how to balance between China and India. And number two, it is polycentric authority. Different communities will have their own rulers, but they coordinated among themselves on different issues. And number three, the economy is extremely diversified. How Melaka fell? Melaka existed only for 100 years, Kedah 1,200 years, because Melaka economy was too dependent on international trade, while Kedah diversified the economy. Some problem with trade, they produce iron. Problem with iron, they produce beads, because there were always other aspects of the economy. And also, we need to see Kedah not from a simplistic view, whether Kedah was Hindu, or Kedah was Buddhist, or Kedah was autonomous. Kedah was a complex community with different types of culture practiced by different types of people at different times. Okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nasha. We have a clear understanding, I believe, on ancient Kedah and also the archaeological findings. What we actually recognize is archaeological findings serves as an evidence-based finding. So they said they find the findings first and then they relate to the history behind it, or learn and unlearn new findings and new theories from the evidence that they have already found. Now, thank you very much, Dr. Nasha. Without further ado, I'm sure you might have some dying questions that you would like to address Dr. Nasha. With that, please put up your hand and please come forward with your question if you have any questions. Right. Can we start the ball rolling? Anyone have any questions? Yes, please.
So how has the tropical vegetation in Malaysia aided and hindered the preservation of the sites and the discovery and the archaeological work?
Well, that is the biggest problem that we have right now, the tropical vegetations. You know, because whenever we finish our excavation, we need to take extra precaution. It rains all the time, and the site gets flooded all the time. So that is the biggest thing, the biggest issue that we have. And there's nothing much that we can do for the structure itself. We cannot remove the whole structure, but what we can do is to remove the important artifacts, like the statues, votive tablets, or anything that we can remove. And for the structure, we try to mitigate the risk by covering it up with plastic canvas while waiting for us to finish the excavation and build a whole structure on top of it. That is all that we can do right now.
So as much as you can preserve it, you try to preserve it.
We will do our best. Anyway, excavation is a destructive process. You know, and after we excavate, we try to extract as much data as we can. And after we got the data, we will do it.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you so much, Nasha. It appears that there are no evidence of Arabic traders or Islamic artifacts or Nestorians as they were passing through China. Also, the other question. Yeah, I mean, this is not one here.
Well, we have evidence for Middle Eastern traders based on the discovery of Persian vases and glaze pottery, which can be dated from the 9th to the 14th century CE. But their religious aspect is not clear. We don't have evidence for that. But we know that there were Middle Eastern pottery there. But we also have to be clear that when we discover Arab pottery, does not mean that Arab lives there. Maybe it was brought in by intertraders also. So those are the possibilities that we need to look into. But based on the Arab records that we have, maybe they have arrived by the 9th or 10th century CE. Yeah? But to consider it as a historical certainty, that's a bit difficult. You know, but we know that the artifacts are there, the potteries are there, the glasses are there, and the Arab records mentioned about Kedah. So yeah, I think to a point of time, that maybe they arrive in that area. But whether or not they are Nestorian Christians or not, we're not sure.
Hi, profession. Sorry. Yeah, question. Professionals. I think you mentioned earlier that one of the key drivers of was the understanding the monsoon patterns. So when you are looking at your sites, can you distinguish whether these sites are permanent or sort of like temporary settlements, and have you found any evidence? Because you said in the hinterland it looks like there isn't much evidence of temples and all these sort of things, but are there any evidence of other types of settlements which may not have, you know, Buddhist or Indian or foreign trader elements?
Now, when we look at temples that we have in Rodziadi, it appears that different temples would have different forms of cultural features. You know, some temples show strong Indian influence. Some temples shows a mixture between Indian and Southeast Asian influence. It appears that different temples were built by different groups of people. And I believe that none of the trading community were permanent in the Rodziadi. Because as soon as ancient Kedah declined, as soon as international trade declined in the 14th century CE, the site was simply abandoned and moved to the north in Kota Sekute. So possibly the communities of traders in the Rodziadi, they stayed there while waiting for a monsoonal change. You know, maybe 6 months or maybe 1 year next. There could have been some permanent communities, but I think the number is not very big. Yeah? And for ancient Kedah, they don't have agricultural lands during that time. Food has to be exported. So for a long-term settlement, then I don't think it is going to be quite viable during that time. You know, the study by Chin Escadon in 1988 said that at one time Kedah can only sustain around 15,000 people at one time. whether this considered big population already. So whether or not there were permanent settlements or not, then I say that it is according to